Hello. Good afternoon.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
My name is Sarah, and I work with the Living Archives Project, where we are collecting stories of how COVID-19 impacted various communities in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. And today is June 8th.
Yes.
And it's crazy. It's awesome.
Yes.
We're in June. We're in summer.
Yeah.
Garrette, would you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Garrette Smith. I am a 49-year-old African-American woman who, if you can see the film, I have glasses on. So I look the typical librarian with a suit jacket on, but deep down I am a lover of food, family, friends, and of course books. So that is who I am, but I can add more if need be.
I love it. Would you just share with us a little bit about your physical description, so
Yes.
what you're wearing and what you look like today?
Absolutely. So as I said, I'm an African American. I would say my skin tone is probably like a mocha color.
Okay.
I do have on my maroon suit jacket because I wanted to be presentable during this interview, with a turtleneck that is checkered with black and white. My glasses, tortoiseshell glasses, kind of brown, and then I have two earrings in each ear.
Awesome. Well, you have a beautiful smile.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So tell me, how long have you been living in North Carolina?
I moved to North Carolina in August 2022. That wasn't my first visit to North Carolina. My oldest brother, Gregory, was stationed in Fort Bragg, and so at the age of 16, we would drive back and forth from Cincinnati, Ohio to Fayetteville, North Carolina. And so we always enjoyed the Carolinas and just the plush trees and whatnot. And so when thinking about moving closer to Ohio, North Carolina was first on the list.
Awesome.
Yes.
So what brought you? I mean, you said you like the warm.
Yes.
But what brought you here?
Oh, great question. So I know that I am not unique in the fact in terms of how COVID affected me personally. My family, my husband and my three sons, we lived in Houston, really Fulshire, which is about 40 miles west of Houston, since 2016. And of course, lots of things happened in Houston around that time. Hurricane Harvey, we experienced that, and being so far away from our family who the majority reside in Ohio. So we went through that, and then COVID happened. And during that time, my mother became ill. She had a stroke. And being so far away from home and trying to juggle the position that I was holding, I was in an administrative position with the Houston Public Library. I had a responsibility there. Juggling the two really made me ask the question, this along with my youngest son, he told me one night, "You're never home to eat dinner with us." And so that's one thing that my family and I have always done. We've always sat down and ate dinner together. No technology, but we have really great conversations. So when he made that statement, compounded with my mother's health and the demands of my job that I truly enjoyed, I had to make some decisions. You know, what's important? Who has been there to help support me and to get me where I am today? And so my husband and I made the hard decision, let's get closer to home. And so when choosing a place, North Carolina, as I said earlier, really has held a place in my heart because it just brings back great memories of visiting my oldest brother and his family. So we decided to start looking in the area to see, are there any opportunities to join the library system? And it was. And so I applied, and I am sitting in the branch that I manage right now today.
I love it. So which branch is that?
So this is the newly Pineville Community Library. Just the librarian in me did some research on this. This community had been without a library for quite some time, and really fought to get a library back in their community. And so when I was applying, it was on the docket for the Pineville Library to open up. So the branch had been completed. They just needed a management team in place and to hire the supporting staff. And so it was right time, all the stars were aligned, and so I applied for it, and the Pineville Library did a soft opening on November 16th, 2022, and the community has truly responded to our presence here and has embraced not only the branch, but the staff that helps serve them.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
So, man, that's just, I love how everything just really fell in place for you. Mm-hmm. So just to go back very quickly to your mom, how is she doing now?
She's doing much better. I will share this. So we had our grand opening celebration here at Pineville, December the 9th, 2022. I remember distinctly because that was the day before my mother's birthday. But I've been in libraries for close to 30 years, and so doing a branch opening is not foreign to me. And I did several in Texas. But this was the first time that my mother was able to see me in that capacity and celebrate with me. So she and my oldest brother traveled down from Ohio to celebrate the opening of the Pineville Library, and that was just a cherry on top. Just to be a part of a historical event and then to have support of my people that I hold close to my heart here to celebrate with me was just phenomenal.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm so delighted to hear that she's doing well.
Absolutely.
And that she was able to celebrate such a special moment.
Absolutely.
So do you get to have dinner with your son now?
I do. Okay. I really do. So, people that I've engaged with here in Charlotte, they say, oh my gosh, the traffic is so bad. And I know that Charlotte is growing. And I know why. That's why I came here. But my commute one way in Houston was an hour and a half. And so to be on the road for 3 hours out of your entire day, I did not know how huge of an impact it had on my personal life. So not only do I have time to have dinner with my sons, but I have some additional time that I'm like, oh, wow, I have time to read a book that I'm interested in and not a book that I have to read, or, to learn a new skill or to, garden. So I've, coming here really has given my life back, not only to my family, but to myself. Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that, Garrette.
Thank you.
So I wanted to ask you, as you were in an administration role with, you said, Texas Houston Library?
Yes. First it was Harris County, which encompasses Houston. So I worked for the Harris County Public Library for 3 years, and then I transitioned to Houston Public Library, which is in the city of Houston.
Okay.
Yes.
So as you were doing that role and this COVID-19 pandemic came to the States, and I'm not quite sure the timing of Texas, Houston. I don't know like when the lockdown happened, if a lockdown, I'm sure a lockdown did happen, but tell me a little bit about that season. So it was
2019, and I was on the tail end of completing my MBA. I was attending the University of Houston in their executive MBA program, and I'll never forget, it was around my cohorts and I had been discussing, the rumblings of COVID. It's because one of the cohorts is a physician. And he was saying, oh, don't worry about it. I've been reading these articles. And so we trusted, Richard. Not that we don't trust him now, but, we were just following his lead. He's an expert in the medical field. And in February, I recall finishing up my midterms. and my family and I were going on vacation to Dauphin Island. And so that was the last time I was in the same room with my cohorts when I finished my midterms, like first part of March. And when we came back, everything was shut down. Our children were, when we left, they were on spring break. But when we came back, you know, our children didn't go back to school. The last part of my program we did online. Work, things shifted at work in terms of the responsibilities of staff. We weren't serving the community in person. So what did that look like? And libraries were, you know, steadily trying to figure out how can we continue to serve in this environment that we're living in. So everything was topped up, you know, was through upside down. And so I do remember the first part of April. I felt close to my family, but I felt a disconnect from everything else because, you know, working in a library, very social, you meet people, you engage, and to change that, what did that look like? And so I would say the first part of April was just a lot of uncertainties. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And so for you, how many kids do you have?
I have 3 sons, Garrison, Gavin, and Grant. And I have to say them in order to remember.
Okay.
Because they all G names.
What are their ages?
Garrison will be turning 20 at the end of this year. Gavin is 17 and Grant is 12.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so really good ages.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about that process, because I'm sure the boys had to do some virtual learning.
Yes.
And tell me about that season as a mom and juggling everything at the library and also being a mom.
So it's funny, anyone that is a parent that's listening to this, you know, rearing your children, you teach them same morals, same values, but they're their own people. And so I had 3, you know, sons responding to the to COVID very differently. My 2 older sons are introverts. The middle one is a gamer. And so doing virtual school, they really embraced it. However, my youngest son is an extrovert to the heart. And so not being able to engage with his friends physically, we saw a change in how he felt, his response. It wasn't a positive change. He just seemed very, I'm not a clinician or anything, but he seemed depressed. His grades slipped. He has always had high grades. And so, you know, my husband and I are very conscious and try to be in tune with the boys to figure out, make sure that they're, you know, emotionally supported. And so we kept asking Grant, are you okay? What's going on? Talk to us. And in a nutshell, he just said, I miss my friends. I miss going outside. I miss playing outside. And so, of course, we weren't the only families that were scared, like, should we let our child just ride their bike outside? What should we do? And so I give grace to myself just because I wasn't in this boat alone. There were other families going through this. So I can't say, you know what, I should have did this. Everybody, you know, everyone I'm assuming was kind of trying to figure out how to help support and encourage and, you know, all of that jazz with if they had children, with their children or with their friends or loved ones. So it was different in terms of the learning aspect. Because I was on the tail end of my program, it was a little different, you know, engaging with my cohorts virtually. I'm not in the technology field. Everything that I've done has been in person. And so how I express myself, I learned I had to explain and you know, make sure that my camera was on, you know, so that people can understand, you know, how passionate I was or, you know, trying to get a point across. So that was a learning curve for me and thousands of individuals. And so that learning virtually the last few months of my program it was quite unique for myself as an adult. So I kind of understood, the changes for our children learning virtually, some of the challenges, and how to support them as well.
I bet.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but also challenging.
Yes.
It's awesome that you're so self-aware.
Yeah.
You're so self-aware to your needs as well as your boys' needs and your family's needs, and that's so important to be attuned.
Right.
You know. So how are the boys doing now? How, they had to adjust with COVID and then the transition of moving.
Right.
And now they're in a new school. And tell me about that.
Again, there's 3 different experiences going on here, but I would say overall they have definitely adjusted. My oldest son, this was his first year in college, and so, he graduated, and I think he was more receptive in moving because he had completed a task, and he and his peers graduated, and everyone knew that they were going off to college. So moving to North Carolina wasn't a huge deal. My middle son, Gavin, he's the gamer, and so he loves engaging with people online anyway. So moving, as long as we had electricity and internet, Gavin is good. So he wasn't really up in arms about moving. However, going to a new high school, he has shared, it's been different. Where we lived, it is growing. New schools, new houses, and so the latest technology. So it was an adjustment for our children, for Gavin and Grant, to say, well, gosh, we had a whiteboard that was a smart whiteboard, and going to a school now and letting them know we were in a bubble where everything was new. So when schools are being built, they have the new technology. And so they're understanding, that aspect is understanding about life, and finances and all of that jazz, because we were able to incorporate why we paid such high taxes and what it paid for. So life is learning. So Gavin did transition very well. As I shared before, Grant is a very personable extrovert, and so he built some really strong bonds. When we moved to Houston, Grant was 5, and so he does not remember us living in Cincinnati, Ohio. So Texas is home to Grant. He grew up from the age of 5 to 12. He was in Houston. And so that was a huge change for Grant. And we are still working through those changes. But again, one positive thing about technology is that he's still able to keep in contact with his best friend that he left behind, Erwin. And so that's a great thing. I'm glad that we have that capability to keep those bonds growing. But then also he's learning how to build new friendships. So that's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear it. And the transition for you, how's that been? Kind of transitioning from lockdown to less restrictions, and then moving cross country, and then being a new branch manager. Right. How is your mental health? How is just you? How are you doing?
I truly believe moving to North Carolina really has benefited me in a positive way. I have my first cousin who I grew up with. We kind of grew up like sisters. She lives in the area, and my best friend lives here. And so I will share with you, because of the positions that I held in Houston, and then the lack of having family there, was kind of lonely. My husband and I leaned on each other for, as many couples do, for friendship and support. But to have an outside network is also important. And that's what I lacked in Houston. So moving to Charlotte really has helped me have an outside, relationships outside of, work. And so to have my best friend here, to have my first cousin here, and now their friends have become my friends, I feel for the first time I have a work-life balance. which, you hear these terms all the time, but now I'm experiencing it, and it is a game changer, really. I come to work every day happy, not that I didn't in the past, but it's a difference now, and so I'm eating it up.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
It's amazing. You really need life outside of work.
Yes. Absolutely.
As well. Like, you want to thrive, you want to enjoy.
Right.
It's not always about work or
Yes.
just family.
Yes.
Work and family. There has to be you time.
Right.
So
Exactly.
That's amazing that you're getting to make relationships and have more you time.
Yes.
And read a good book.
Yes.
So before we started the interview, we did an activity together called a hand map. Is there anything from your hand map that you would like to share with us?
Sure. Let's see. Actually, it's funny. Some of the things that we've already talked about it's on my hand map. Okay. But I will say that within my fingers, in terms of describing myself, I put that I'm a nurturer. Just from how I was raised by my mother, who became a single parent when I was in the 3rd grade. She had to make sure that she balanced doing everything for myself and my 2 brothers, but also how to nurture us. And so as a former kindergarten teacher, she was able to balance that, and the nurturing of her has really helped nurture me becoming a nurturer and a server. Some people call it a servant leader, but I feel like I have that within me in terms of nurturing. And then when I became a mother, I realized that I was responsible for the well-being of these little kids, and you don't come with a manual. And if anybody comes up with a manual, boy, will they be a billionaire. But nurturing and being able to love on these children, and my partner and I both decided we wanted to raise children that were productive global citizens. Not to put our agenda on them, but to help support what they love. And so that's where the nurturer comes from. And they've really helped me hone that skill as well, because, the position that I'm in a selfless position. And so nurturing has changed and evolved since I would, from a child to where I am as a 49-year-old. And it will continue to change because, we are human and we engage with different people with different backgrounds, but they have helped me to evolve into I would say, a better nurturer.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should go through the other ones that
Whatever you want.
Okay. Determined is next to nurturer. And it's funny, it was on my ring finger. So when my mother and father divorced when I was in the 3rd grade, the little Garrette thought it was her fault. And now I can relate to children. It had nothing to do with me. But if you go back to your childhood, sometimes you think, gosh, how did I think that was my fault? So growing up, I was determined to find a mate that was as passionate as me to work through problems. Again, I was a child. I didn't know what issues my parents faced, but that was something within me that I really wanted to have someone that will work with me through the problems. Of course, I couldn't articulate that as a 3rd grader, but that's something I was determined to do. And so what I found, and by the way, I've been with my husband, we've been married 21 years, but we've been together 33 years.
That's amazing.
So he was my first date. Wasn't allowed to date till I was 16, and he was my first date.
Wow.
So that's that determination. But also, being determined to succeed. And succeed means something different for everyone. It doesn't have to do with money or anything, but to accomplish some things. I am definitely not the smartest person in the world. I love to surround myself with smart people, but I was determined to make sure that in our household, my mother gave us an option. Either you're going to go to college or you're going to join the service. Of course, I like being cool in the summer and warm in the winter. And I knew I did not want to be out in the elements of the world. I salute people who do that, especially those that fight for our freedom. But I knew that that wasn't in me. My determination was to conquer the world and help support humans through education. And so that's why I chose library science. Of course, at that time, I didn't want to be a teacher because my mother was a teacher. But I am able to teach and disseminate information in a different way. So that's my determination. Being kind will get you a long way. I lived in Seattle. I worked for the Gates Foundation. I did an internship while I was in library school and then was hired on to the Gates Foundation and lived in Seattle for a while. And people asked me, how is it in Seattle? I said, the people are really kind and friendly. And I knew what that meant. And so being kind is kind of, my definition is really not going out of your way, but making sure you carve time out for someone else, whether someone you know or don't know. That doesn't always mean giving something physical, giving money or giving. Being kind is really just being patient and acknowledging someone else. And so over the years, plus being in this field of librarianship, there's a form of humility where you have to be kind. Sometimes we're the only individuals where people speak, that we are able to hold a conference. People come in and they may not have spoken to anyone all day, but they are able to come speak to staff. And so I learned that lesson years ago. I realized a customer that I was helping, she confided in me. She said, you're the only person that, saying you, not just Garrette, but the library team, you're the only people that I speak to throughout the day. You know, her maid had passed away. She didn't have children. And like my mother says, you know, the older that you get, the less friends and family that have been there since you were born, the numbers drop. And so that humbled me and made me remember you have to be kind to people, you have to listen. And so I incorporate that on a daily basis, whether it's with library customers or if I'm driving or shopping in the grocery store. I'm kind, yes. And then lifelong learner. Being in the library field, you learn something new every day. And so that it's a feeling that it's a great feeling. My husband told me a while ago, he said, he gave me this scenario. You have two people that come into a conversation. One is sharing their knowledge with the other. Who's the winner? And I immediately answered, the person that has the knowledge. And he said, no, the one that listened. The one that listened now is walking away with additional information. You should constantly challenge yourself to learn, listen and learn. And that's how we can win as individuals and as a society. And so, lifelong learner. Yes.
I love it. Is there anything else?
One last one, I think. Yeah. Funny. So that's a part of me that different levels of funny. I remember in childhood, my siblings had different interests. I had an interest in I just had a huge imagination. I played with Barbie dolls all day. And my oldest brother was really into nature, and I remember him having a Marine sticker on his window because he wanted to be in the service. And then my middle brother playing with his Star Wars action figures. And so, they're boys, they had a bond together, and I was the only girl. again, I couldn't articulate this as a child, but how can I build a relationship with my brothers when they come and tear up my house, my Barbie doll house, you know? And I found that humor really brought us together. And so that was my go-to. I really studied them to see what made them laugh. And it created a different type of relationship with them. And so that's my foundation. I try to find humor. I really look at people and see, you know, what makes them tick. And not to say every time funny, I'm not saying jokes or anything. They don't always go over well, but you know, just the humor in things. And even if it's a humor about me and my hiccups, you know, people tend to laugh like, Garrette, yes, you do that. And so just trying to build those relationships through humor. But then, you know, laughing is also therapeutic. It just feels good, you know, to laugh. I read an article and I shared with the team here at Pineville about when you smile, it releases certain chemicals in your body. And so that's the same with laughing, smiling and laughing. Again, I'm not a scientist. I can I can give you the article, but that resonated with me. And so I want to feel good. And so laughter is part of that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, is there anything else, maybe a story or an experience that you would like to share with us?
I will say, and I think I touched on it just a little bit, you know, throughout my library career, I've always wanted to, I had a slow increase in terms of responsibilities and positions. And when we moved to Houston, I finally was able to be in administration. And that's something that I had worked towards for 20 plus years. And I thought that was what I was supposed to do and be, and I had to experience that. But again, with COVID and how the environment that we lived in, it made me realize what was important. And so for so many years, I thought a title and a position and how to bring change to people's lives, it's very important. But for me, it made me realize, because of the circumstances that were happening to me personally, made me realize what was important to me at this time. And so it was really family and friends, and also putting myself first. And so while I still have ambitions to have a much larger impact on greater Mecklenburg County, right now I'm having an impact on the community of Pineville. And so I am now comfortable. If I would have been doing this interview, 7 years ago, I was in a different space, and I viewed what was important differently. But I am actually happy right where I am. I have an opportunity to be a part of a new library that's serving this community that fought so hard for it to be here. I am experiencing and being able to use my experience of management and administration skills with new managers that are on my team to help them grow into management. And I have an opportunity to learn in this process. I don't know everything. And so the team here at my branch, as well as in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg library system, I'm learning from folks as well how to be a better version of myself.
That's amazing. Yes. What do you think shifted for you? Like that mindset, that space, how you view things, your perspective. What do you think shifted?
I think what shifted is, I know during the pandemic, we watched a lot of news, and the news was very heavy. Those that were impacted at very young age by COVID, just a huge age range. But the families that were going through this difficult time in their lives, and the lack of engagement that they could not have at that time with family. I think that was part of the trigger, and everything else that was going on made me realize what was important. Like, we take for granted just life is just so delicate. It's so delicate. And I didn't know how delicate it was because I woke up every day for the past 40 plus years and I did what I was supposed to do and I came home and you know, that's life. But how it's so delicate, you know, in terms of spending time with people. And I think that was the trigger that changed my thinking in terms of, let me treat this delicate gift that we have, the present. Yeah. Let me treat this gift the way it's supposed to be treated. And that's to find the good in everything. Of course, we can talk about, oh, the weather, it's so hot, it's so cold, it's rainy. But this was a rainy day I've never seen. And so it really made me slow down. And Morris, my mate, he always says, you know, we have various sayings for a reason. Take time to smell the roses. That means really, it's telling us life is delicate. Slow down, just pause and think. And so I'm not a philosopher or anything, but these sayings and, you know, what people have studied and shared with us really resonates now. And I have to calm myself because it's easy to get in that rat race again, like, oh, I have to drop the boys off at football practice and this one has a concert and supporting my husband and I have responsibilities and things to celebrate. Pause and let me just, I'm breathing. Yeah. Because one day we're all on the same journey. You know, doesn't matter your socioeconomic situation, what you believe or don't believe in, what you look like and what you know, all of that at the tail end, we're all moving in the same direction. And so I want to be able to celebrate that, not just myself, but celebrate other people's journeys as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing such wise words.
Oh, I hope it's wise.
They are. Before we finish, is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
I am really humbled about the project that the Living Archives is doing in terms of capturing moments. My father is a photographer. He's an artiste in so many ways, but he would capture moments with photos. And so, you know, he's a writer. And so he wrote this one poem to me, and he wanted me to write a poem back to him. And I was in second grade when I wrote this poem, and he has it framed. And the poem was, some people are afraid, some people are not. I am not. And capturing moments on film and writing orally really helps to support people that may not be here now or those that are here to help move in their journey. And so I really thank you and all of the hard work of people that I don't even know put this project together to capture people's moments, because it's a moment in time of how life in the society that we live in has affected how they move in the world. And so I think it's wonderful, and I am humbled to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you I'm honored to be able to sit in this space with you and hear your story and just be impacted. So thank you, Garrette, for your vulnerability and your authenticity.
Thank you. Thank you.